Well, I'm so happy today. I've got Mila Johansen with me, and I'm really interested. She has such a rich background and as an organic farmer, and also her history with her family and book writing. She loves to gather those stories, and she's a publisher. She teaches. Well, your teaching background too. I never even got into that. I was kind of surprised. Yeah, I used to teach. So welcome, Mila.
Oh, well, hi. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Yeah. So first off, let's go in to your background there with the organic farming. And you had said like your husband had actually, he was an organic farmer before organic was kind of a thing. So
Yeah,
can you tell
yeah.
me that story a little bit of his involvement there? And
Yeah, because organic, of course, has been around for eons, but the new organic thing after they started the spray and Rachel Carson and all that, then my husband took his family's mandarin farm and other a citrus ranch, 80 acres down in the Sacramento Valley on the northern end, the farthest north you can be and grow citrus. And he turned it into organic because he was running it and he didn't want to spray poison on himself. And so he was kind of a Renaissance man, a pioneer. He started that like 50, 60 years ago before it was a big thing with another man. Another man was the big pioneer, Amigo Bob Contisano. And Amigo has been all over the world and Napa and consulting farmers he would help people turn commercial farms into organic farms. And he even, I think, did the King of Jordan or one of those countries.
oh
And
wow.
yeah, and Amigo was great because he started this organic farming conference called Eco Farm, and it's every year at a Sillamar grounds down in Monterey. And we were the first people to go with him because he was our friend, and we all live in the same area up here between Sacramento and Tahoe in Nevada City. And he started it, and we sat on benches in the redwoods, but then he moved it to a Sillamar grounds, and Rich and I went every single year. And because we were selling, I'm from Los Angeles, and I grew up in gangland. I don't look like it, but I did. My brother didn't make it out. He died in the street. And so I was the Cinderella of the house. At 10, I had to start doing all the housework, about 4 hours a day, do everything. And my mother didn't believe in boys doing housework. So all he had to do was half hour a week, mow the little tiny lawn and take out the trash. And I think that kind of ruined him, but I was saved by having to stay home and do all the work. So anyway, my husband got me and he put me to work and we met at Chico State, and that's a beautiful college up in Northern California.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so he put me to work and he was lucky to get a real Cinderella. He'd say, go out there and mow drive the tractor for 8 hours. He taught me to drive the tractor. And then he'd go, okay, we're going to pack for 14 hours. And I'd be, okay. I was kind of like a Pollyanna, let's do it. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I would do all this work. And then I became a pioneer in it too, because I've been there 50 years with them. And Amigo and he were the true pioneers of what organic is today. And then he put me to work, and then about 5 years into it, he bailed to go get a real job at an antique store. Because we had to have a day job, and
Yeah.
I ran the whole ranch by myself. I'd call him every few hours, Rich, what do I do about la 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 la?
Yeah.
And I mean, I let him tutor me. And so I ran this ranch for 20 years by myself, like a man, and all these men would come to me for advice. At first, they wouldn't listen to me. At first, the men, I'd ask a question, and they'd look at me, and then they'd look at Rich and answer Rich. And pretty soon they
Yeah.
started coming because I was the novelty in town, and they would ask my advice, and I kind of became like the organic expert always with Rich.
Yeah.
And we've been married now 45 years. And so that's kind of how we got into. Oh, and I loved when I got there. I was so happy, Patrice, because when I was a kid, we were starving. I go to bed without dinner. My mother was a single mother. She was a teacher, but that wasn't enough to make ends meet. And so I would go to school without lunch and watch all the other kids eat lunch, and I'd sit there. But I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me because there's still hungry kids, and I want you to go out and help those kids because I married an organic farmer and will have all the food I ever want for the rest of my life. And so I that's, you know, how it all
That's
kind of began.
that's that one thing, about that's why I want to teach kids how to garden. I think it's really important, that they have that life skill so that they don't have to go hungry, you know? If you can
Yes.
teach them that, um, and like now with the cost of groceries really going up, and if you can have like that family garden, and even if you've just got a little part, or even if you haven't even got a piece of land, there's ways you can grow, and the window farming or whatever, and that, that when you say that too, that abundance that comes about when you are working the land. And I know you said that, like, you're not doing the farming part now. You've rented out like the where all your vegetables but or anything, but you've got that beautiful nutritious food. As you
Yeah.
say, you'll never have to be hungry again.
Yeah, I only buy organic, and I'm really into, probably you know about this too, those towers, the food
Yeah,
tower, because you can grow up. And my thought was, I tell everyone, grow at least one tomato plant so you get used to it, because here's the biggest problem, Patrice, that most people aren't aware of. There's no more pickers. There was nobody to pick. We used to have 40 to 60 pickers a day. We can only get 12 right now, and they have to import them. We pay them more than $20 an hour. We pay them by what they pick, but they're all worth 2 to 3 men. They climb that ladder, pick, pick, pick. I
yeah.
went out to pick lemons a few years back, and low lemons. The Meyer lemons are short trees, so I didn't have to get on a ladder. And I would fill my bag, 5 pounds instead of 40, and I'm going, oh, I gotta get to the car,
Yeah.
because I used to be able to pick, but I'm 70 now. So what
Oh,
happened was, then these guys, they'll pick like two or three people, but if they don't ever come back, we house them, we feed them, we pay them that huge amount. If they don't ever come, and they're all legal, let's
yeah.
put that on the record. If they don't ever come back 1 year, we're done. We can't farm anymore. On our smaller farm where we live, we have young Caucasian farmers who have taken it over and running it as their business, and they do all the work, and they really love the work too. But you don't find Caucasians much. When I started working on the ranch and running it myself, I had half Caucasians and half people from Mexico. Well, pretty soon the Caucasians disappeared, and now it's all people from Mexico. But I want to tell you something. I would much rather work with someone from Mexico than a Caucasian, because they never say, why are we doing this? And how long is it going to take? And they come back with a better tool and know more than me. So so that's kind of what happened with that. But there are no pickers. I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie A Day Without a Mexican.
No, no.
It's an incredible movie. Everybody should see it, because guess what? That is the story. And that's why I tell everyone, you better at least grow one tomato plant on your deck to get used to growing. Like you said, the children
Yeah.
should all be doing it too. But now I have this great idea that I've had for like 20 years. I've been trying to get someone to do it because I can't do everything. And those barrels, they're like the towers, but they're barrels, and they have like 70
Yeah.
holes in them. And you can grow all your stuff through hydroponics, through feeding through the center. Well, I thought even every deck in New York could have one of those and have some food. That's my thought. Then there's these new ones too, where they're straight up and down in kitchens. They're like this, and they're hydroponic, and they have their own lights, and you just pick your lettuce when you want it. You just
Yeah,
pick
the
it.
grow towers, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking we may have to go that way, and because right now in Canada there's these huge warehouses, and they're growing everything like that up. And
Yeah,
they're
they're
huge lettuce. That's where a lot
vertical.
of our lettuce comes from. So I'm thinking even forward.
Yeah. Well, I know myself, we built a really, big grow room, that's attached to our house so that we can grow all year round. And it was, we had followed, Martin Armstrong with, I don't know if people know about that, but he's actually, uh, he's got his Socrates computer. It's more for, wealth and finance, data that he's collecting, but he follows the cycles, and along with environment, along with, the commodities, like all these things like that. And he was saying like the forecast from what the patterns are showing on the machine, that with the varying environmental, like extreme temperatures and things like this, and weather conditions, that one of the best investments you can have is a more controlled growing environment. And so, but like that wasn't the reason we built that, but that's why we're really happy we got it. And
Good.
like
I think
our greenhouse attached to the house came about because my husband knew I always wanted a greenhouse, attached to the house. And we had this big south window that was about the size of a door, and it cracked. And he says, well, we've got to replace this window. Why don't we turn it into a doorway, and you can have your greenhouse, attached greenhouse. And I tell you, like, it works so well. And that the first year we just took out that one window, but then the next year, like, because it worked so well, we had the exact same window on the other side. We took that window out, and we took as much as the south wall out of our house as we could. We had to leave the supporting, beam in the front, and
yeah.
opened it right up, and it makes such a beautiful environment, like brightens up the house. And we like, so we can grow all year round. Like we heat with wood, and we've got a cathedral ceiling, and we pump the heat from the top of the roof and pump it down lower into the greenhouse.
Wow.
And that
Hey,
just, yeah. And so we can grow all year round. And I
well,
do
I
have
think however someone can grow, they should all start growing something.
yeah,
I really feel that way, especially after seeing that movie. I'm like, oh my God, because we don't realize how much people from Mexico run things. And now all the pickers, what happened with them is they got what maybe better jobs in a way, factory, motels, some are doing tech, building houses. So there's nobody left to pick. And at all. And that's going to be a huge problem for much of America.
it's funny too, the same thing. Like, I live up in a forested area up here, and one of the uh, forestry and tree planters, and they can't get tree planters anymore. They
That's
have a
right.
real
I used to know
problem.
people who planted and climbed for the pine cones to get the seeds, and they're not doing that anymore. You're right. A lot of people don't want to do that hard labor anymore. And we need those laborers. And in the history of the country, we've always had the people come in who did the labor, the Chinese and then the Irish and then the people from Mexico. And so we need a new population that will work, and we're not training our young people to like to work. You would love this though. The young farmer who took over our farm up here, he has a crew, and they're all Caucasian, and they are very proud of their work, and they work just as hard as our people from Mexico. So that's another aspect that's coming in, is the young people wanting to be farmers and wanting to do that.
Get
That
back to the land, and
it's
that
very hard work, very.
yeah. Well, too, like that there was that back to the lander movement, like when um I was, it wasn't quite like the hippies and the communes, but it was a back to the land here when we moved up here, and we came together as a community, and we built our homes together. Like, we each owned our separate piece of land around here, and we built our homes together, and we built a hall together, and it was like the old work bees. And we could do it a lot more cheaper. And so, like I have no mortgage or anything. I've got like 45 acres of land, and but you built your homes, and you work together as a community, and we work
Not,
together.
not anymore. I mean, there's a few people do it. I know a lot of people in communes and things like do it, but they often fall apart too. So
Yeah,
it's, Oregon is famous for that kind of activity and everything. But I think people need to take responsibility for themselves. There's another thing that you've probably done, and you've heard of plant a row. Plant a row. So what it is you plant a
Or-
extra row of food to give to the food bank. But now you don't really have to plant a row just for them. You can, interdisperse and then take a portion, 10% or whatever. Well, when I came to the ranch, I saw the food and I said, Rich, we have to give some of this away. He goes, oh, no, 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 we don't give it away. We sell it, because they had come out of the depression and the family was very parsimonious and la, la, la,
Oh,
and they owned a slaughterhouse and we finally just got rid of it. And I haven't had red meat in 50 years because it cost twice as much when I was in college. So I got used to chicken. So that summer when I took a bite of beef, I doubled over in pain for 2 hours, so I never ate it again. But his family wasn't wanting to give everything away. But I went out because I ran the ranch for a while, and I started giving 10,000 to 20,000 pounds of number twos to the food banks. So we've done that all along. And so I think the more we can give, the more we can help everyone else. So if you are a gardener and you could join that plant, you don't have to join really, but it's just a concept of plant a row for your local food bank. And I really love that concept.
and there's even like in some of the cities, they've got programs where um, if share something or so like if you're in the city and you've got an apple tree and you're not going to pick it, you
Right.
can
I love that.
advertise in this community. And so somebody comes along and picks your apples and they'll share part of the bounty with you. And
That's a nice concept, except there's an insurance thing. If they fall, then they want to sue you. So a lot of people won't do that, actually.
oh,
We used to have, when I first came to the ranch, they had peaches and it was called You Pick. So he'd give me the tractor, which that's what kept me going on the ranch right away. Like, you have to drive this tractor? Wow, that's cool. So I would drive them down on a wagon, the family, and they'd pick their fruit, and I had these overalls, and I'd have thousands of dollars stuffed in my pockets by the end of the day. And I did this Obi-Wan Kenobi thing. I don't have money. There's nothing on me, so no one would rob me, and so I would bring them down and they would pick, and then we had to quit that at one point because of the insurance problems. But that's how it all went in the old days, especially on the farms. People come pick the strawberries, they come pick the blueberries, and it was really fun to have them come and do the picking, and all I had to do was drive them in and drive them out and load their cars and take their money. But another thing I've done is I've worked a lot on against GMO, because, right now we've lost so many seeds, as you probably know. If you see beets, there used to be like 10, 20 varieties of beets. Well, now there's only like 2 or 3 on the wheel. So I've worked against GMO, and I made up a term. And now people are using it. I made it up like 30 years ago. And it's GMO stands for God move over.
oh,
Like they're going to do it better. So, and GMO is, I used to go to conferences and I'd put up this banner behind me and I'd be like a magnet and it would say, what is the rat gene doing in our food? And people go, what is it doing in our food? And so, and what they said was, well, the rats produce 8 times the vitamin C of humans. And on the ancient ships, they wouldn't get scurvy. So that was what they were trying to tell us, that they were going to put the rat gene in lettuce. And so I've worked a lot on that. We worked on organic. And I think I told you that, when you're feeding, should we go into that feeding program a little bit, how it saved the ranch?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, kelp, everybody to know, especially like where you live and, points north. It freezes, it freezes even in Southern California. Most people don't realize that. And it freezes where we are. We're the farthest north you can be and grow food. And the freeze, actually, the cold snap is what brings the flavor out in the mandarins, Satsuma mandarins, the pure one.
Ooh,
Yeah, so without it, our mandarins don't ripen and they're more, and that's why the mandarins from Southern California are very bland because they don't have that cold snap to just bring in that flavor. And so my husband, Amigo, taught us to do a huge amount of feeding. And so we do kelp. And kelp, for all of you out there, can bring your plant down by 4 degrees. So 4 degrees can often make the difference between freezing and not freezing. Maybe not where you are, but where we are. And so often a freeze was predicted and the newspapers and TV cameras would show up to watch our ranch, Johansen Ranch, take a fall. But ours didn't freeze, even though all the neighbors around us froze because we had done kelp. And so they had to make the story about how kelp saved the
the
farm.
farm.
Yeah, and if you all you organic, especially vegetarian people knew what we're feeding this stuff, it's like blood meal, bone meal, fish emulsion, fish guts. I mean, it's like gross stuff what we're feeding them, but that's what it takes, and we're recycling that stuff, which we don't make it. We buy it already recycled because who can do that kind of a program? And compost, we have to give a tremendous amount of compost. And to be organic, certified organic, we're certified CCOF. They come out and they check and they do all these tests, and you have to give a certain amount of certain kind of live compost to be able to be certified.
Okay, that's part of this. Okay, this is new to me. So to be a certified grower, you have to give the compost. That's like I always thought, it was about not having, the pesticides or
That too.
fertilizers, stuff
That
like
too.
that. But
That too.
so
But the thing is, but they really want to make sure that we're regenerating the soil, that it's becoming sustainable. So part of it is that you're being responsible. And for a while we had to put up bat houses or owl houses, these tall things in the orchard for, I think it was bats or owls. Like we had to really be part of the ecosystem
well,
to,
this opens up, like, this is a whole new picture to me because I love the idea of regenerative agriculture.
yes.
And I didn't know it was tied in with organic certification and stuff.
A lot of hoops. We have to pay a lot of money to do it, and we have to put so much paperwork that my husband would almost get mad at people who weren't certified because he was doing all this work and almost paying for them. But I said, no, 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 Rich, as long as they're not spraying the planet, we have to support them. We just don't want poison sprayed because, Roundup and all of that, I've done a lot of studies, a lot of speaking against it. And Alice in Wonderland, I always end every speech with that. If you drink from a bottle marked poison, it's certain to disagree with you sooner or later, and that's cancer.
Yeah.
We can't spray anything because you're killing the weeds, okay, but you're killing your pets and your children and yourselves. And there's no reason to put poison out there. And it's only new in the last 80, 100 years anyway that they started it.
And
Um,
killing the soil, like all the microorganisms in the soil,
yes.
like we had my daughter-in-law, they had their neighbor right beside them had a little garden plot and some apple fruit trees. They lived in the city. She sprayed with Roundup all the time, because
Uh,
she didn't want weeds. And, yet my daughter-in-law, like she always enriching the soil and she gathers all the leaves from all the neighbors bring their leaves in the fall to, build up the compost. So she's building the soil and her stuff is just growing beautifully and they had, I think her neighbor had someone used to garden in that place there at the part and she went away and somebody else was going to garden there, but it was like the soil was totally dead.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah, that's
totally,
happening to a lot of commercial farms. Because we're in the breadbasket of the world, pretty much here in San Joaquin Valley, the whole valley of California, and so and they're depleting the soil, and that's why the certification is so strict about every farmer participating, and we put on our box CCOF certified, and we put it on everywhere. I will say there's a few things that aren't organic that nobody should be doing, and one of those are stickers. Stickers are not organic. They're not required. They shouldn't be there because small farms like us, we looked into it. We would have to buy this machine that we couldn't afford, and it almost put us out of business. And so I say stickers are not environmentally safe.
no,
I don't
no.
like it. And as a mother, I didn't like I have to cut off part of that apple, waste part of that apple for that stupid sticker, and it wouldn't come off anyway. Then you got the glue. And so stickers are not sustainable. And I speak out against that.
Well, and so ridiculous. I mean,
My
it's
grandmother,
placed.
was a suffragist, and she was the first woman lobbyist at the Capitol. And she taught Eleanor Roosevelt public speaking and thousands of other women. And in her last speech in her early 90s, she spoke with Gloria Steinem and Marlo Thomas all the time. It took me along. And she was adamant about, oh, I got this book wet. Oh my gosh. She was adamant about uh, women's rights. She was the lobbyist for the movement with Alice Paul and Carrie Chapman Catt, and she spoke all over America, and she was amazing. And she had grown up on a terrible childhood with incest and murder on a Colorado cattle ranch, but a teacher saw how brilliant she was and got her to Smith College. And so she was always a militant, not a militant, but she was a parliamentarian. Alice Paul was a militant, and they were the same age. And she would have lunch with Alice Paul every day at her house across from the White House while they were getting the vote. But when I was young, when I was 18, I loved my grandmother so much. I said, I'm going to make a great old lady because I'm already eccentric. But I wasn't going to be like her. I wasn't going to be a revolutionary, but I am now. And she would join me if she was here against pesticide and GMO.
Yeah, yeah, like it's horrible, and it's so hard nowadays, like trying to find unadulterated food. It's just like,
The
it's
organic stores do a good job though, because, they took our mandarins and for years and years we've had the same buyers and they're distributors. They more like distribute it, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And we don't sell to individual stores as much as we sell to distributors who pick up our fruit. And, we have Meyer lemons, we have navel oranges, we have blood oranges. Mangoes
Oh,
are
oh,
we're famous
I'm
for the
still here in the snow. Mila, stop it. You're making me,
I know, I know.
my
I
mouth
love
is
oranges.
watering.
The point was I was trying to make earlier was when we didn't have any food and I was always hungry, the only thing that would quench my thirst, this is going to sound weird, was Tang. Tang was the old
Oh
orange.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
that,
so when I got to the ranch and I could have as many oranges as I wanted, I was in heaven.
oh yeah. Yeah. Well, when we went down to I went for a trip down to Florida there and picked the fresh squeezed orange juice, and it was like,
Yeah,
this is totally different than the, frozen stuff or the,
right.
jarred stuff. And it's having that fresh food. It's just such a difference. And that too, like with the going back to the regenerative agriculture, like if you're feeding the soil and you're taking care of the soil, like it becomes so much abundant, more abundant. And like I always had quite a time with cabbage butterflies and stuff like that, and eating my
Yeah,
cabbages. The caterpillar would be part that would eat them. But the if you are actually keeping your soil really, really healthy, you
right.
don't get the
They
pests
come.
and they don't freeze and they, it's just,
That's what happens. One other thing to think about though, here's another secret I found, is that, I really admire tomato worms because tomato worms become butterfly moths. I mean, hummingbird moths. And most people don't know that.
really,
Yeah, that cute little moth that flies around, looks like a little bird at night. It looks like a bird
yeah,
flying up.
is that, okay.
That's a tomato worm. And so I don't believe in killing them. So I used to grow a plant, an extra plant over there, and I pick them off and put them over there to eat that plant. But I found out that because I'm an herbalist too, I've been trained for 20 years as an herbalist with Kathy Cavill, who lives in our area. She's written 18 books. She's amazing. She took us to Italy twice for training. She's amazing. I'm really lucky she's here.
Okay,
But
we
when
got
I
to get
found
into
out that
that
if I
too.
spray lavender, it stops the ants in my house. But also, if I just take a little light wash, lavender, not too much in a spray bottle, and spray the plants like mullein. Mullein is famous for
Yeah.
earwigs. But if you spray it, oh, and I take the buds, the lavender buds from my plant, and I drop them on the top of the plant. That's another one where they get caught in the elbows of the plant. The tomato worms won't come, and the earwigs won't come. Nobody will come if you put lavender on everything.
Wow. Wow. With that. So now you just opened something else here with a herbalist. And so that I love that idea of not only can you grow your own food, you can make your own medicines. And
Yes.
so how did you get into that? And it sounds like you went deep into it if you're going over to Italy to,
Well,
and why Italy?
I was homeschooling my daughter and we were looking for things to do. And Kathy said, hey, we're doing this internship. They meet for 1 weekend, a month for 5 months. And I said, okay, well, you know what? My daughter's 12. She needs something good to do. So we went and we both took notes for years and years. And finally she dropped out when she became a teenager, more like 5 years later. But now she's going back to it as a 30-year-old. And then I became the herbalist by accident. I made all these products. I sell them on Etsy. I make a pain oil that really gets rid of pain. And it was all taught to me by my teacher. I make a room spray that really gets rid of the smell.
Yeah.
I make all kinds of fun things, and I have all the bottles in the world, and I sell them on Etsy and in a few local stores, and I do quite well with that. And then I make St. John's wort oil because where we live we have a lot of that, and then most people in the world don't have it. So one year I made $5,000 just selling St. John's wort oil, and I sell it for super cheap. Most people, they don't have. Oh, here's another thing. I have olive oil on the ranch, tons of it. Like I get like 50 gallons a year, and so I could make my medicine really cheap with the olive oil, so I don't charge as much as anybody else. So I have St.
Yeah.
John's wort oil on my Etsy store called Herbal Botanicals. And one year I made $5,000 just selling that herbal oil of St. John's wort because it gets rid of pain, it heals wounds, it does all these things. So I was really lucky to be with Kathy all these years, and she's still way ahead of me. Like I love her. I teach, if you've ever gone to one of my classes in writing and publishing, I taught one yesterday. I teach like a fire hose, but so does she. And it took me about 10 years to slot everything she said and recognize the 100 plants we were recognizing from the outside. But I really like learning that way, so that's how I teach. And she's still like so far ahead of me on the knowledge wheel. And she's written 18 books. No other herbalist has written that many books.
Wow. Wow. So do you grow herbs on your farm too?
Yes. Oh, I try to grow everything rare. I grow a lot of elder. I have a lot of elder growing here, elderberry. And then I have like, lemon, verbena,
Yeah.
and I try to grow, I grow Oregon grape. Oregon grape is the number one tincture that stops me from getting sick. Even Dr. Oz says he thought it was better than golden seal because golden seal is going extinct. But Oregon grape is a berberine. It's yellow, anyway, there's a lot to it, but I take it every single day for the last 10 years, and it stops me from getting sick, and it's magic, and it stops diarrhea, it stops everything. And it's a tincture. I believe in tinctures, and this is really important. Don't ever take a tincture straight. It can go into your esophagus and harm it for life. You want to always put it in at least an inch of water or a little juice. So that's something for everybody to know too. And never, this is one more thing. I'm an aromatherapist because I took years and years with her on aromatherapy, and she wrote the yellow book, Aromatherapy for Dummies. She wrote that book.
Oh,
And she's written like 10 books on aromatherapy. And so never ever, now this is really, really important, no matter what someone tells you, no matter what other company tells you, never put essential oils on straight. They have to go in a carrier oil. It should be 1 to 10 normally, because it could hurt your liver on the wrong day. And they're not telling people that. And she's amazing. Oh, anyway, I
wow.
learned so much from her.
That's it. Yeah, when I start thinking, I love to like forage for the
Yes.
wild plants and herbs and that I live right in the forest, so my backyard is full of abundance and
What do you forage?
the wintergreen,
Oh,
uh,
wintergreen. Wow. I've never been able to forage that.
yeah, yeah, and the your Yervi. I only read that. I never see
Uvi, Yervi. Wait, I can't say it either.
Probably UVI, that
Yeah.
moss, that the balm of Gilead, that's just coming up. I just went for a walk today, and I'm always looking for, the things when they come into season, and we're just starting to get the buds of the black popular for the balm of Gilead is just starting to swell, and I'm watching for those golden drops to come
I
out.
don't know that one.
Oh, oh, for me, like that with spring, that's one of the first spring harvests would be with the balm of Gilead, and it's
Oh,
from
the
the
balm of Gilead. I've never seen it. I would love to see. Hey, would you take a picture one day and send it to me?
sure, Sure, sure.
Yeah.
And it comes from, it's off the black poplar tree. Black poplar, like you know what poplar trees are, aspens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the black poplar, and it gets, it's their leaf buds as they're swelling, it gets like the golden drops, and it smells to me it's this, the smell of spring that it's
Oh, I
got a
love that
lovely
because
smell.
all those things, the willow and the aspen and all those, and the other one, oh, what's it called? Anyway, the cambium layer of those can stop headaches and all kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we got like, you know, the yarrows and the um uh oh, what are the ones that, like I grow, it's not native here, but we grow, I grew, put some mullein in there.
Oh,
Uh
mullein, I love mullein.
yeah. Well, it's just such an amazing plant too, and you know,
And
it's
it's the
not native.
flowers, mullein grows in 2 cycles. You know that, right? It grows, the cough leaf the first year. Second year, the flowers come, and then you pick them each day and you put them in oil, and that's what stops earaches.
Oh, okay. So, do you know anything for tinnitus?
I have tinnitus, and I just started something. I'm not well versed on it herbally, but what I looked up, and it seems to be helping me a lot right now. Oh wait, was it ginkgo? Yeah, ginkgo biloba.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so
I
get
wrote
get a
that
pill,
down for a
get a
friend.
pill so it's concentrated. And
Yeah.
then ginkgo biloba is also an incredible facial oil that I make, and it turns this beautiful little light green. I make beautiful face creams too.
Wow.
And but that, I think that's the one that's on my bottle that is really helping my tinnitus right now. It said because it will rev up your bloodstream, that would help stop that.
Yeah, like I knew it was really good for memory too, and
Yes.
yeah. So and that's it when it opens that, and so it could open whatever is making the buzzy noise in your
Yeah,
head.
I have tinnitus too, so I've been trying to find something that would help that. There's some other things that this one doctor is putting out, but I've really been doing the ginkgo for a
Oh.
month faithfully, and I think it's really helped.
And does that tree grow in your area?
Yes. Oh, I have a lot of them. I call, if I have more than 6 trees, I call it an orchard. Guess what? I have a very valuable tree. I have 6 linden trees.
Ooh.
And I found them in front of the library. They were little tiny plants this big, and I snuck there at 5 in the morning so no one could stop me. I've never seen them there again. And I brought them home, and I grew them and I gave some away. But I planted 6 way too close to each other, because when you go to Italy, the incredible smell that you get there if you're in there in June, that they're all in bloom, the whole entire city, all their shade trees are linden. And the smell is beyond anything I've ever smelled in my life.
Wow. Wow. And that, so tell me, so in Italy, what is it? Why for herbalists in Italy?
Because Kathy says that she believes that St. John's wort came from there, and
Oh,
that
okay.
the how where it originated. And then there are a lot of different herbs there. A lot of them were the same. Plantains everywhere on the planet,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
plantains magic, and lemon balm. I had another teacher for a while, and he said pick 2 herbs that you really rely on. And his 2 were lemon balm, which cures everything on the entire planet. Melissa, that's Melissa, can really help with shingles and prevent shingles. And so the other day I was getting some kind of weird something on my skin, and I've had shingles. And so I went to the store, got some Melissa, started taking it every day for 2 weeks, and whatever it was went away. But lemon balm was his number one go-to, and number 2, dandelion, which can clean your liver, and cleaning your liver cures everything.
Yeah. My probably my number one is the nettle, stinging nettle.
Oh, nettles. Nettles is the only way you can fill your body with iron. I used to be iron poor blood, almost dying, they said. I was so anemic. And my one other teacher, the teacher I've really studied with besides Kathy, taught me to take nettles every single day, tincture in water or juice. And after a year, I've never been iron poor blood
Yeah.
again.
Yeah,
Because you
that's
can't take iron pills. You can't take iron pills. You can only get
no.
it through nettles.
Yeah, well, that was my go-to thing when, and if anybody was anemic, like here, we'll get you. I
Oh,
actually pick some and I ship, like I've got lots of nettle growing all over the place, but and I'd even make it, put it in my smoothies, and because that's the stinginess when it's macerated or blended up, it's gone.
as soon
And
as it gets wet. Yeah, as soon as it gets wet. Now, with nettles who you were using, because, here we have these little nettles, but were yours the big ones I see at the
oh
ocean there?
yeah. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you can get
Yeah.
all the seeds too. Like the seeds are very nutritious
Oh,
too.
I didn't know. I've never used
Yeah.
those.
And like so like I'll make a just like you would have your cabbage potato soup or kale potato soup.
Yes,
And
yes,
I make it with the nettles
yes.
and I'll throw nettles in, like I dry a bunch for the over the winter, but it's and yeah, I even wrote an article on my love affair with nettles, of how
Oh,
it turned
I
like a
love that.
nuisance plant, and to me it was just like
You have
no,
a lot of them growing wild where you are.
yeah, yeah, all
You can
over the
make tinctures because tinctures are pretty safe to make because it's alcohol, and that's what draws it out.
yeah.
And I have some tinctures I started 10, 20 years ago that I haven't even opened yet because they last forever and the alcohol, I haven't even poured the material out yet.
Oh my goodness.
You know
Yeah.
how I learned when I first started with her, I thought I'm going to learn everything by doing it. So I picked every single thing I could find in the wildcrafting, and on my ranch, and I made every tincture there was, so an oil, so I could learn what they did.
Wow. Wow. I've got some fabulous, fabulous books. I'd gone to a herb conference, and the presenter, it's mug.
Rosemary Gladstar. No.
No, no, just talk away. Tell another story. I'm going to go grab them.
Okay. Yeah, because Rosemary Gladstar is another amazing herbalist. She lives on the East Coast, and I think she's on a farm called like Iron Mountain. And Kathy Cavill, the one I'm with here in Nevada County in Northern California, they often get together and they teach together and they do symposiums together, and they're often invited because they are the two leaders. Well, there's a lot of leaders, but those are two of the main leaders in herbology is Kathy Cavill and Rosemary Gladstar.
And she was around here too.
No, Rosemary Gladstar lives on the East Coast. She
Oh,
lives more like in Maine or Connecticut on a farm. I think it's called Iron Mountain or something. And she's amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
She's written a lot of books.
This is it's I've got 4 volumes. It's Sundew Motherwort by Robert D. Rogers. And I've had, like, this is the one book I will not let out of my house,
Good, good.
because I would borrow stuff, but it tells you, like here, like on parsnip, it'll tell like all the municipal breakdown, and it'll give you like for homeopathy, essential oils. Uh, some will have like the native uses, and some of it's just like amazing. Like there's no pictures. It's all the just tons and tons of information. And it was funny, like I had 4 volumes, and then I seen online, oh, there's a 5th and 6th. So I actually called up the author, because I tried to find these books and I couldn't find, I wanted the other volumes. And so I found a number, and I called the author, and I actually talked to him, and I says, do you have any more of these books? I'd love to get them. And he says, no, like they've gone out of print. And I says, well, do you like have a PDF of it or something that I could get print out a copy or something? And he said, no, no. He says, and he kind of turned away from that. And we had a lovely conversation. It ended up, he knew some people. He used to come up here. We've got music festivals up here, and he used to, with some of the band players, he'd come up here, a lot of them were, he studied with a lot of the plants around in this area.
Mm.
And
But that'd make a good book for you to get those.
yeah.
You know, you can often find used books on Amazon because people are reselling them. Like I help people write and publish their books, and when I tell them, no, you know you've arrived when your book is being resold. Really quick before we end, I want to make sure that we talk about
Oh,
this book. This
yeah.
this book has a lot of herbs in it.
Oh,
And
okay.
this is from the Garden Goddesses, a group I'm in. And Susan and I did the book together. I had my crew put the book together, and she brought in the goddesses. I brought in a few. And it has my one friend, Gail, who's at the top here. She has an entire section on essential oils. Oh, and this woman, she made food art. She makes food art for parties.
Oh,
So we
look at
put her at the end with her beautiful stuff. But I just want to show you this one part about herbology in here. We have a lot of stuff that's like fire cider, elderberry syrup.
yeah.
It's all how to make everything. It's not an herbal book. It's more of a cookbook, but we have these herbal sections in it. This person did astrology and healing with herbs. This person is doing all the essential oils that you can do for different sunburn and different things. But then there's a lot of recipes. I do alternative Thanksgiving with nut loaf and
Oh,
butternut pie.
I gotta go buy that book for sure
This
because
is a really, really good book, and it has a lot of recipes. And the greatest part of it, almost, to be honest, is Susan finally divulged. She's been our fearless leader for 12 years in the Garden Goddesses. She hired me to do the book. She finally divulged, and in the book is her bread recipe, her famous, famous, famous bread recipe, which is amazing. The only thing is there is one thing. I make delicious cornbread stuffing for Thanksgiving. And then,
hmm.
but the only thing is that one woman put her grandmother's pie recipe in, and she forgot to put the shortening or the butter or the flour amount to put in. So you have to
Oh,
watch out for that there. This is my father-in-law. He was 99, and he would make us all the cranberries, his famous cranberries.
oh,
So it's a great book, and but it has a lot of herbology in it, putting herbs in the food even. So
yeah.
you'll love this book.
Well, that was one other book was one of my favorites was Cooking with Healing Herbs by Pat Crocker.
I
And
love.
that one, it inspired me. I was going to go out and I was going to grow all these different herbs and everything in the garden, and each day I would, pick whatever was ready, a different herb, and then go into her book and get some recipes there. And but what ended up, I made so much work for myself planting all these herbs all at once that by the end of the day it was like, oh, I'm just too tired. I'm going to go back to my old.
But herbs will grow and like weeds, you don't have to do anything. And most of them the deer won't eat. So they're really great. And what I can do, this, I love doing this. Someone taught me this, one of my teachers or something. You go out and you cut a little bit of each herb and you put it in your water and kind of let it soak all day and sip it.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, this has been fabulous. And we didn't even touch
I know,
on
I'm book publishing.
your, yeah, you're a book publisher, and that we didn't even go there at all. That I really appreciate you sharing with us all that background stories and valuable information. I learned a whole lot about even like with organic gardening and all the herbal stuff. And so thank you. And I'm going to go pick up the Gardening Goddesses.
Yeah, it's recipes from the Garden Goddesses. Everyone will love this book. It's a eclectic collection of everything, and most of it's organic. A lot of it's raw. A lot of it's herbal. So it's got everything in it.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you very much.